been setting up today, some of which we've solved, some of which we haven't solved. But the good news is that everyone who's going to be talking to you about SEO today is very much up for it and very excited to get talking. Which is the other reason why I'm a couple of minutes late getting to you, is because we've already started answering some questions. So what do I need to tell you all before I invite the panelists to come join me? Well, I need to tell you that this is one of the expert panel Q&A webinars we run at the end of every month here on Keep Optimizing. On the podcast each month, we focus on a different marketing topic each month and go through various different angles on it with our guests. And then I get as many of the guests back as possible for this webinar, so you can ask them your questions. So our kind of vague topic today is what should be on your SEO to-do list right now. And I've got a few things I want to ask them, but I'd love it if you guys could ask them questions as well. So you will find the ability to ask us questions in the chat box. So feel free to start adding your questions now, because like all these things, the sooner you ask your question, the sooner we will be able to answer your question. And if you leave it right to the end, I might not have time to ask it. So Lucia said hello. Hello, Lucia. Ask your question right now if you've got one in the chat box, or add them as we go. I will be keeping an eye on it throughout. And then who have we actually got coming up to talk with me? Well, 4 of our SEO experts have been able to join me today. So this is going to be an energetic panel. We've got Luke Carthy, who, if you listen to the podcast, you will know Luke. He's been on a few times now. He's an all-round SEO and CRO god, and you can book a free discovery call with Luke at keepopt.com/Luke. We've got Adam Bastock, who is an SEO expert for Shopify and WooCommerce. He was on the podcast last week talking about blogging. And you can get a free mini SEO audit with him at abastock.co.uk/masterplan. We've also got Diana Richardson from SEM Rush, who is talked a lot about competitive analysis when she came on the podcast, but who can cover an awful lot more. So lots of questions for Diana, please. And you can get started with SEMrush at www.semrush.com. And then we also have Nick Truman, whose episode went live today. So hopefully some of you have managed to already catch up on that. And you can find out about more about Nick and what he and his team do for retailers large and small at spec.digital. And then there's me, of course, the host of the podcast. And you can find the podcast, if you haven't heard it already, at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or just go to keepoptimizing.com to find out everything about it. But I think it's time we stop looking at my slide deck, and instead we're joined by my experts. So guys, can you please turn your video and audio back on and come and join me, please? So I just hit the wrong button, because apparently that's my life today, is hitting the wrong button. Now I've hit the right button. Woohoo! Hello, everyone. Do you want to just quickly go round the room and let's just let you intro yourselves very quickly to the audience so they know who's here. Adam, let's start with you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, great to be here. My name's Adam, e-commerce SEO specialist. So typically I work with quite small businesses who are on WooCommerce and on Shopify, giving them really practical advice on their SEO tips and how they can start building the solid foundations for SEO success for the next year, but also the next 5 to 10 years past when they stop working with me typically.
Nice. Diana, you're next.
Sure. Hello. I'm Diana from SEM Rush, and I've had all of my career has been in SEO, PPC, social media, and email, and the likes. I worked for a brand agency before I was at SEM Rush and learned so much about all things outside of digital marketing, because the first 12 years of my career were only digital marketing. So it was really fun learning that. But I've been in SEO since 2006. Because I answered an ad in the paper. So I've worked with clients of all shapes and sizes, old school, new school, big, small, international. And now at SEM Rush, I contribute to our social media and I get to talk about SEO.
Yay. Nick, you're next.
Cool. Nice to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Chloe. I run a consultancy based in London in the UK. My background was in sort of agency world, the PPC, SEO, etc. I quit that, started my own business, a bit by accident, Then I sold that, tried to get out second time, and ended up doing consultancy in PPC and SEO. Picked up some nice big corporate businesses and then built what is now known as spec around that as well. We very much sort of 50% e-commerce, very big in Shopify, Magento, stuff like that. And the other half of our business as well that we're not talking about today is B2B, generating leads.
Very cool. And Luke, last but definitely not least.
Hello, I am in the same office as Adam because we have the same colour. We're not really, and even if you were, we're social distancing. You can tell from the camera. What do? I do e-commerce stuff for e-commerce people. Is the easiest way I explain it. So I focus predominantly on improving conversion with the traffic you have, and then lastly, bringing in more of that sexy traffic in the world of e-commerce. And can I just finally say that you've also addressed me, Chloe, as a CRO and SEO god. That's not because I'm a narcissist. That's because I couldn't be bothered to correct Chloe on it, and I had to put that down. So don't look at me and think this guy is arrogant. Like it's not me, all right?
Yes, I said he was a god. Luke did not say he was a god. Just to clear that up, everybody. Okay, all of you out there watching, again, thank you so much for coming and joining us live. Please ask your SEO questions in the chat box. In the chat box, I've also added links to those things I showed you on the slide earlier for each of our participants. So we're going to start off with the question which I started asking off air and then realized, well, we really should just be doing this on air, which was, one could say embarrassingly, apparently not so embarrassing as I thought it was. I said, guys, before we go live, what's the name of that big change that Google have just done? So I can ask you really intelligently about it when we start the webinar, because it's obviously the biggest news in SEO at the moment. And they came out with 3 different answers. So I am going to start by saying, guys, what are we calling this massive Google update? And Luke, as you're our god, we'll start with you.
Oh, duh. All right. So, Core Web Vitals, right? I think I've got a hypothesis around this, and of course, it's not a new hypothesis, to be honest. In the world of e-commerce, you make things fast, you convert better, you sell more. It's no news that making an experience clean, crisp, easy, simple, straight to the point is always going to be positive for your conversion. The only real difference is Google, and I'm sure probably other search engines will pinch a similar slice, is just make it quick, make it effective, make it mobile friendly, and make it show it's easy to use. And that's kind of the sum of it. I mean, I know, Diana, you've probably seen lots more data than I have and a lot of this sort of stuff at scale, but this is the stuff that we've been practicing and preaching as consultants for many years. It's now just an official Google stamp kind of thing and a ranking signal.
Luke, you were like read my mind. I think I said almost the exact same thing to somebody else that I was talking to. I said, these are the things like SEOs have been doing and designers have been doing for years. It's just now Google finally catching up to the fact that a good website, a quality website also involves the positive UX. So it's kind of Google catching up to us, actually. So
Yeah.
who saw that coming?
Well, yeah. And
Right.
so if you've been doing well, then you're all right. Now, Nick, you had an alternative name for this. You're calling it something else, aren't you?
Yeah, I won't use the French version because we're trying to be PC here. I called it UX update or something like those, exactly as Luke said, and Diana. We're trying to just achieve what we've been trying to do for years anyway. It's a bit like when they did the whole kind of, I forget the exact name, whether it's penguin or panda, it was some animal beginning with P. Either way, it was cute and cuddly. But the whole point of that was to get rid of people link building and just building a million websites, build one and copy and paste it a million times, linking back to one site. Google eventually asked a very relevant question. What's the point? And with this, I think it's similar. If you shouldn't have been doing stuff pre this update differently to what you're going to do post, it's just to kick up the backside, I think, to say, well, actually, we should have pages that load quickly. Yeah. And I don't know how much we're going to go into this today, but there's lots of new acronyms that have arrived as well, like CLS and LCP. And the first client says, what's that? And then the next 50 conversations you have is, by the way, there's this thing called LCP and CLS. And I think certainly on sites like Shopify, for example, it's really bad for page speed is the kind of public, I've been on Twitter threads and I've had to actually take a back seat from Twitter just over the arguments of like, I don't care if you think Shopify's good or bad for SEO. Our Shopify clients are ranking really, really well, making loads of money. So what is the most important thing here? But certainly on things like Shopify, there's been lots of debate is how much can you actually improve some of these little technical things. And essentially, it's not just the speed of the page, it's the way the page loads and what happens after the core of the page is there. Does it change? Does the order of products in a collection, does that suddenly tweak? And there's a lot more to it than that. But Luke, you nailed it. Like it's all the stuff we should have been doing anyway. Like someone searching this, do we have a good experience for them? If not, well, they shouldn't come to us anyway. And can often be a difficult conversation for us to have with clients around some of these bits and pieces. But it's nothing new. It's just an emphasis, I think, on the way the world is going. So it's a good update in my view.
I feel like they're standardizing it. So before, like the acronyms, the lovely acronyms that we've now had a year and a half to like remember what they are, because they were new to us too, because Google loves to make up their own language, but now I feel like they're putting, like, just like they did with page speed insights, like they're putting a standard to this that will become the guide. So, if Bing comes up with its own whatever, and is it going to stick with, are we going to come into like a schema world where schema is kind of is universally accepted across whatever, like, or are we going to have Google's version with these crazy acronyms and these standards, and then Bing is different, and then DuckDuckGo is different, and so Google initiated this, and people and the businesses tend to follow Google, but I'll be interested to see how the standardization happens.
It's definitely a helpful framework, but I just think that the one thing I've seen it very practically has come out the back of it is other tools using this framework. So things like GTmetrix now have like a really easy to understand 3 boxes of, is it FID, LCP, and the other one, which I can't remember. Which
any 3 random letters you want, mate.
Yeah.
ABC.
Which is a very quick, fast assessment of whether a site is good or bad. But that is also such a small metric on the broad scale of things, because, as Nick, you say, Shopify sites can still run and make money even if they've got relatively poor core vital scores, which probably shouldn't be saying, but as you say, it's a business thing rather than just a purely SEO thing, because SEO isn't always the be-all and end-all, sadly.
Yeah.
Now, we have got quite techie SEO quite quickly here, which is cool. It's good. It's always the danger if you get one SEO in a room, let alone 4. It's just going to disappear off some internal stratosphere. So, Lucia, thank you so much for asking, should you be worried? No, you shouldn't be worried. This is an opportunity, I would say, rather than something to be worried about, because this went live from the beginning of June, I think, didn't it? So it's slowly being rolled out. I haven't seen any horror stories, but I was consumed by a summit for several weeks and then went on holiday. So have there been any horror stories of people being massively denigrated in the listings from this? Luke?
I haven't seen it, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. Like, take a breath of relief. But my mindset here is, and let's be honest, Google is a commodity. It's a business first. It cares about it. It cares about its users and its own resources before it does us as SEOs. I actually think, and I've had a conversation with a number of people around this, that this Core Web Vitals update actually makes things a lot more efficient for Google rather than influences user experience. They don't really care about user experience because, let's be honest, their business model is all on paid search. Once they get the click, that's typically all they're interested about.
Thank you for saying that.
As possible. So what I mean by this is, if Google can crawl a website with 30% less resources than what it needs to today, that is saving money. And additionally, if we as SEOs and e-commerce businesses can show Google what a consistent, good, solid UX looks like, then of course it's got to use that data to its advantage. So my point here is, it seems as if Google actually cares about the audience and who are clicking the actual, in old school language, the 10 blue links. But in reality, I think this is more of a commercial play, just like canonicals, just like, I know I'm going off on a tangent here, so I probably need to stop. But my point here is, it's not if you don't do it by D-Day, you are going to lose all your rankings. It's more of an evolutionary change than a kind of, here's the deadline. Ouch, that hurt my hand.
Well, and do you think that's an interesting point too, because originally it was supposed to be launched, fully rolled out, this big thing happening in May this year. That was the plan until May rolled around, and then they delayed it. So what do you think, what are y'all's perspective on why they pushed it back, and now why it's taking 3 months to roll it out?
I've got a theory on this.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, because a couple of clients have asked. What I'm hearing now is July, like mid to end of July, and the rollout so far. See, as I say, based on your question, Chloe, it sounds like they're doing it offline, sandbox, etc., to see what's happening first. I think one of the reasons they've delayed it a bit is because they've realized how little people know about all these new acronyms that have come out. Google PageSpeed Insights, for example, it's where I know we all use GT Metrics and other tools like, SEM Rush and little plug Diana, and also other tools that I won't mention like SE Ranking.
Such a charmer, Nick. Such a charmer.
You missed my last
you can
comment
mention
then.
the other tools. Fine.
We use those tools, but we know every client goes straight on PageSpeed Insights. And the reason I reference that is they've only just added, I don't know the exact date, but it's only a few months ago I noticed that actually CLS and LCP and stuff have appeared in there. And until that, 6 months ago, I'll be honest, I'm not in the day-to-day kind of technical stuff as much anymore, but Search Console didn't have any of this. And suddenly there was this freak out of, oh no, there's another red thing and it's called CLS. And what the hell's that? And so my theory is that they're playing about with it in Sandbox to see how the algorithm is actually going to affect sites, so that, as you say, Luke, they don't want to have this big upset because it just caused carnage when they've done that before, like the rollout of responsive and mobile sites, and when Google local search for Google Maps all became like a big thing. There were overnight rollouts without much warning, and I think they've learned from that, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Now, Adam, you do work with the smaller guys who can't take the huge strategic approaches to all of this. So what have you been working with on the smaller guys to help them go through this, or have you not been doing anything particular? It's just been business as usual.
I think to a certain extent, my advice has been ignore it and just carry on investing in user experience at a broader level. That's almost more important. And they're missing like the fundamentals that this CLS stuff's going to go straight over their head. And as you say, the optimizations you can make to a massive website that's getting 1 million hits a day is going to have a much bigger impact in terms of core vitals and all of that stuff than someone who might only be getting 30,000 hits a month. The gains to be there, which Luke can probably go into far more detail, aren't really there to be had in such a way. So I've typically sidestepped it a little bit and kind of said, this is something to be aware of. This is certainly something to address and like work towards on the obvious things like image load speed and making sure that your images aren't 10 meg download, which I have had some clients where homepage banners are still in PNG at 2 megabytes, and it's just. It's those foundational things that you really need to work through first. And yes, that will help with your core vitals, but that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because it's a better user experience on the whole.
Exactly that. Man on the head, mate.
I'm glad.
Optimize for your people. Optimize for your customers, and search engines will follow. If you do it the wrong way around, you will always trip yourself up. Never chase the search engine unicorn. That's the key takeaway for people on this thing. Don't get on the treadmill and chase what Google want you to do. Just do what's right by your users, and you'll be really
Sorry, just on that, Luke, you reminded me of something you said a minute ago, and you've reminded me about it again. There was a big update years ago on Google about one-page websites, and that was exactly the unicorn thing. Google hates one-page websites. Do you remember there were articles all over the web about this? And then it was like, I deliberately changed, when I was freelancing, I changed my website, nicktruman.com, which, don't go to it now, it's very out of date. But I changed that to a one-page website, and I was suddenly like up on the first page for Digital Consultant London. And I was flying, and I was like, great, killing all the other pages worked. So I did a blog post basically saying the other one, but you're right. Never try to please a search engine, because a search engine is not going to necessarily pay your bills. It is always the customer, 100%.
Yeah. And I think that goes to the past 10 years of SEO, really. The fundamentals of SEO have never changed. It's always been make your website easy for people to understand. And then Google's got better and better at understanding websites, and therefore those are what the updates are being, put out in the industry as these big changes. But I think the reality, I think, is far simpler than that. Because, as you said, Luke, Google's there to make money from ads. So the more people that are using Google, that's its main focus, not us.
Yeah, 100%. Got one last thing to throw in, Chloe. And
throw away.
But there's a case study I'm been reading through by sheer coincidence. I've done it again. My bloody hand is going to be a bit right. So it's
the first webinar that breaks someone's hand.
I know. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't see my desk. It's literally just below my chin. What am I doing? Anyway, there's a bridesmaid dress retailer called Revelry, and they've basically made its website 43% faster. And as a result, bounce rates have decreased 8% and conversions up 30%. Those kind of KPIs aren't because they chased the Core Web Vitals thing, that is because they made it faster, which is arguably kind of what Google wants you to do, but with a different intent, right? It's about making it better for customers. And I think there's that cliche, really famous one about every millisecond quicker Amazon make their site, they, blah, 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 X revenue, X conversion. But yeah, just do it for the right reasons. The internet's not going to change overnight, let's be honest.
Well, I think the good thing about the trajectory of changes that Google have made over the last 10 years is that increasingly they are an additional incentive to do what we should have been doing anyway. Yeah. So it's less, which is one of the reasons why SEO now strays into PR and into content and into ads to some extent and into social and now into CRO as well, is because it's making the search engines want to make the consumer happy. So anything we do to make the consumer happy should make the search engine happy.
Just to add on to your case study, Luke, I normally make a lot of statements of like, forget the technical stuff. That's for the nerds at the web agency, and we'll tell them what to do. That's all done in a few months, and then we'll check if anyone breaks it, kind of thing. I'd rarely make statements like this, but we did fix CLS and LCP and just moved from red to amber in Search Console for quite a large UK retailer over the last few weeks. We've seen SEO jump significantly. Revenue's almost doubled. It's ridiculous. And rankings have gone up. We got their top, it's about 60 keywords, their priority keyword list, and then the thousands and thousands that all our lovely tools like SEM Rush give you. The 60 ones alone, we saw about 250 jumps just on 60 keywords, which is pretty significant, I think. So it's weird, though, because it is the first update where you can do something that I think is so technical and so minute and see those kind of numbers. We spent the last couple of weeks since that's happened with that client assessing what else has changed on the site. There's hundreds of people working on the site using Wayback Machine, all this kind of stuff, trying to work out if somebody else just changed that golden word of it's not vegan handbags anymore, it's vegan leather handbags. And suddenly niche keyword goes up, revenue we can't find anything else to attribute it to apart from this. It's the only big change. So Google's clearly putting some emphasis on it, but I don't know if in their industry the rollout's happened and it's not happened in other industries yet, or vice versa. We're just ahead of the curve and Google likes that. But I have never seen such a little technical thing make such a big impact
for me
so quickly.
Is a perfect example of life as an SEO. You do something, it makes an amazing difference. You then spend 2 weeks double checking that no one else did something accidentally that caused your amazing results. We have had a question from one of the audience, and all of you out there, please do put your questions in the chat box. We are very happy to answer them. The sooner you get them in, the more likely we are to have time to answer them. But before I come to that question, Adam and Luke, you both look like you wanted to jump in and add something to what Nick was saying. So did either of you want to do that? If so, do it now. Adam, we'll come to you first.
I was just going to say that I think there's two things very quickly. It really summarises it. One is that Core Web Vitals, it mostly gives us a framework to measure on what we're doing already. So then it gives you a very quick tick list of things to improve, which I think maybe a year ago was a little bit more vague and a bit more techy, whereas now the tools can sort of do that. And then the second point was that this is more of a scenario of reward rather than penalty. So a lot of what I've seen is a lot of fear around the Core Web Vitals update, when I think actually it should be seen, as Nick said, an opportunity here to improve your website, and therefore you will only gain as a result. Whereas if you do comply with Core Web Vitals, I find it highly unlikely that you're going to be penalised and suddenly start dropping rankings as a result from it. So this isn't something that's going to penalise you; it's only going to be beneficial.
Cool. And Luke, did you want to jump in with something, or are you good?
I was just playing devil's advocate, really, wondering whether it's making it faster is actually what's made it rank better, or is it actually Core Web Vitals that's been fixed that's made it better? In other words, pre-C Core Web Vitals, would those ranking improvements have happened anyway because you've made a better site?
Page speed didn't improve. That was one of the weirdest things. It was purely just CLS was no longer an issue because you changed the way lazy loading was running, and LCP, which is, for anyone who doesn't know these things, LCP is if the biggest item on the page takes too long to load, and CLS is a whole can of worms. So LCP, for example, LCP, we found out that it was actually the image on a product page. It was only affecting mobile, etc. So we just added a height and width parameter of this is the max it needs to be on the biggest, iPhone or Android Plus size or whatever. But it was weird. Yeah, the actual page speed didn't change at all. It was just that we had changed the way the page load, which to be honest, it makes me really hate Google. Nothing's happened in the real world, yet we're getting more traffic and revenue, which good for us, good for our client, not really good for the whole industry, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, I think we should definitely now answer Lucia's question, which is from taking us to a totally opposite end of SEO, from conspiracy theories and excessive analysis down to the nitty-gritty, which is, Lucia is asking, what tips would you have for someone who's just starting with SEO? Would you just focus on publishing as much relevant content consistently as possible? I'm going to come to Adam first, because this directly links back in some ways to our episode about blogging.
Yeah, this is a really good question, and I think my initial response would be yes to that suggestion. I think really relevant content is always a good thing. I would question, though, how you're defining relevancy there, and this is where keyword research is really important to validate that what you think is relevant is actually relevant to what people are searching. So typically with any client that I come to who's never done SEO before, and even if they've got a brand new business, is this keyword research discovery phase, because, and everyone loves the word discovery now, but this discovery phase, because it's this really good way of just validating that your and understanding what your customers are searching for, whether that's their objections to buying, the terms they're describing their product with, and how that might have changed over time. So things like vegan leather handbags, that will have changed massively over the past 2 years, and you might start seeing cruelty-free handbags come through now more so than vegan, which again is then 2 different search intents. And so just getting an understanding of your customer there is really helpful, even if it doesn't influence your SEO, because it might be that you then realize that vegan leather handbags, that keyword's far too difficult for me to go for, because John Lewis is number 1 and you've got all these other brands on that first results page, which as a brand new company you can't get to, but you then know that people are searching for it, and that can help inform your other marketing strategies outside of SEO.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my first. That's why I think keyword research is really important for that before you start getting into technical or kind of link building stuff.
Well, so I think, piggybacking off what you just said, I think establishing your audience personas is the first step.
Yeah.
Because that's going to establish even your mindset when you're doing keyword and topic research. That's going to influence, your customer journey through your website structure. That's a little bit more on the technical side. But if you don't know who you're talking to or who you want to talk to, you don't know what content's going to resonate. You don't know what their intents are, and you don't know what kind of journey you want to take them on through your site. And then it's going to be just a page, and people it's not going to resonate. It's not going to take them through the proper flow. And so I think like understanding people is the most important first step before you even start on anything else.
I'd agree with that, actually, yes. I revised my answer.
No, you were like right there. Like, yeah, you were like right on the same path. So,
okay. Do we have any advance on customer persona?
Something earlier than that, yeah. Go on, Luke.
Robots.text, just sort it out, mate. Honestly, the amount of time it's like, I've just launched an e-commerce site, and then I do a site command, and there's 15 million URLs for site search for queries that no one even cares about. I have a client at the moment who shall remain nameless in the world of finance, and it's a relatively small brand. It's a huge global brand, but as an internet presence, they're quite small. And they're in a situation where, let's just say as a ballpark, 65% of all their queries are related to Viagra and gambling, because their site search was a free-for-all. A bot's obviously gone away and started throwing queries in, and they've become indexed somehow. It's just a mess. My point here is, don't allow your site search to be indexed. That's a typical rule of thumb. Sort your robots.txt file out and just make sure your site's not super bloat heavy. And that's all I want. That's all I want my clients to do. I can take care of everything else. But yeah, I think it's the cliche answer, but getting your fundamentals right. And a lot of that is down your robots.txt, right? Parameters, your faceted navigation. And I'm assuming the person who's asking this question is my mind's gone straight to e-commerce, but in fact, in any type of site, listing, e-commerce, static, if it has a site search, just stop it. Stop it.
Which doesn't mean turn off the site search. It means stop the results of the site search being indexed.
Yes.
That's what we're saying, which I don't think we're going to go any more deep into that technically, but I think I should add a caveat for anyone who's watching the replay or who's not watching this in the UK, which is we started doing this at 5 p.m. in the UK, and to be fair to say, Luke has clearly had a day of frustration.
Waiting through robots.
So why is this not happy hour right now?
Because we're doing this.
Because I made everyone turn up to a webinar. They should all be down the pub.
I've got some nuts if y'all want to share.
I've got some raw eggs in case any of my staff misbehave.
No, we all need a glass of wine right now, I think.
Going back to the question, the only thing I'd add, and again, like Luke was saying, this is a e-commerce only way of doing this. Take what Adam and Diana have said about keyword research. So work out, what does somebody type into Google that would find me? Do a bit of filtration on that. What's a John Lewis style massive, Walmart type keyword or Amazon versus what's so small, 10 people a month. Even if I got 20% of that, it's only 2 humans. It might be the same person searching twice, waste of time. Get your keyword list right. And then on e-commerce, I always focus first of all on collections. So position the collections properly. Because on SEO, Google often wants to give people a choice. I'm going to use the analogy again, as it's always hot in my mind. I think I mentioned it on your podcast as well, Chloe, is the vegan leather handbag. If you're looking for that, we don't know exactly what product you want yet, and therefore neither does Google. So seeing a range of them is important. And with categories, and it's easier to do it on something like Magento than it is on Shopify, you want to build like a hierarchy of categories. So the top of the hierarchy is basically the homepage. And the next level down might then split by like men's, women's, boys, girls, or it might split by, if it's just a all women's wear brand, for example, it might split by tops, dresses, skirts, etc., and start going into different fields. And then within those, you then go from dresses into, you might go by style next, you might go by size, color. So you build this little hierarchy. And it's based on things like how many products you've got and stuff like that. But if you're in e-commerce, that is always the first place to go. I'd do that, leave it for a month, see what the rankings start to do, use a tool, SEM Rush, to track your rankings, etc., and see what happens. And obviously keep a very close eye on analytics, or if you're using something like Magento, Shopify, you can use their dashboards as well. See how much traffic you start to get and then work from there. We're up on page 2 for some stuff pretty quickly. So next thing we do is we're going to optimize that more. We're going to build a bit of awareness on other sites, start looking at social. But collections, it's always where we start. They're always in a mess for every e-commerce brand we walk through the door at. And it's like, why have you positioned it like that? This is, sometimes get variants side by side. They've got like 2 or 3 categories literally in the main menu. One is a color, one's a size, and one's a type of product. And you're like, they need to be side by side, really. If you've got color, you need all the colors, so work out where that fits in the journey. But yeah, collections and putting keywords into titles, the name of it, the H1, the URL, meta descriptions is what Adam said, the basics, but that's a specific thing we always start on.
Just to jump in on that very quickly as well.
And I also have a comment too. Go ahead first.
Excellent.
I think it's to be really niche and specific with that, because so many times I see like this bespoke kind of new company that's coming through that might be selling a new range of candles, and they will have collections called candles. And it's like, you're not going to rank for the term candles. So what differentiates your candles from everyone else? And then can you start, as you say, Nick, combining those variants in to create these specific collections? I agree with you. Shopify is not great for this, and it is frustrating that their collections are so blunt, because it's a very flat structure. But you can, and this isn't the best SEO advice, however, you can do it from a practical point of view, create collections in Shopify that are quite niche and therefore have, vegan leather candles as a phrase, as a collection, or, red leather candles or whatever it is. And you can build it out that way quite quickly. It can get a little bit ugly from a URL point of view, so they go too far with it. But you can do that, and it is a fairly quick way to build up. There's more niche collections, which I think is really vital. Diana.
Yeah, I was going to say also Nick's theory on categories also applies to non-e-commerce sites for those that are just content related, and those are the content clusters. And the same thing, you can come up with 5 or 6 different prominent areas of content or topics that your site's going to cover, or subcategories. If you are, an instant pot recipe website where you're already a niche, so then are you going to break that? Are your content categories going to be breakfast, lunch, dinner, meat, vegetarian, sides, desserts, 10-minute dinner? What are your content categories there? And then those are your content clusters where you can test, like what Nick was saying, like you can see what's ranking in certain categories and then elaborate on the content in that area. But it's also a great way to test those content pieces and see what does resonate with your audience from a non-e-commerce standpoint.
Just on the Shopify collections, Adam, sorry, I know you had your hand up. We found a way around it on Shopify. I can't remember exactly the name of the app, but one of the web partners we work with on quite a large Shopify Plus store we launched earlier this year, there's a way to make a hierarchy within your nav So you can put all your collections in, and that then auto generates things like breadcrumbs. So the URL structure is always still /collection/ the name of the collection. You can never get any deeper. But then actually there's a big argument in the SEO world about how long URL should be. And I honestly don't have an opinion on it. I've seen it work both ways. More text equals more stuff, less text equals easier to understand. I get it. But yeah, by using a hierarchy within the nav, that will also then create breadcrumbs. So you can be like 2 or 3 levels deep in a collection. Gets completely complicated when you reach product level though. So there are ways to then assign a product to a master category, but it's not easy and it is a bit of a workaround. The other thing we often do in collections is put buttons to the subcategories, because then when Google follows URLs, it goes right, menswear, then into shoes, then into smart or casual shoes or something, then into blue smart shoes or something like that, and then
just
down
use
into
WooCommerce, isn't it? There you go.
Some clients have too much money to spend for WooCommerce. It's
Just quickly, just taking a step back from the kind of the technical side of implementation of URLs here, because we could talk about for hours on that, I think. But which is that collections are really good. The reason why I think it's a good strategy as well initially is because then if your product range changes, you've still got SEO value at a level that is beyond the product. So you're a bit more resilient than to any changes in your product catalog. And this is something I've seen a lot with small clients where they suddenly go, well, actually, we've got this, range of Christmas decorations that we're about to ditch out, but we've just spent an entire year building links to product pages. And it's like, well, then it's the question of, do you redirect them, do you for them and create a custom landing page, or do you keep them up and do something with that? Whereas if it's all been built around the collection page, you can quite easily swap that and cycle that product range around without too much impact to your SEO. And yes, use WooCommerce.
I think I can see Diana's ready to jump in here, which we'll let her in a second. But very, very quickly before you do, Nick, can you please email me what that Shopify plugin is, so we can add it to the webinar, the webinar page on the website? Because I'm sure if the people watching this live are not going, I need that plugin, there are people who will be watching this later who are going to need it. So if you could send me the link, I will make sure it's added to the page.
I will do. I'll get an affiliate link if I can as well, because that always helps.
Make the most out of it.
Diana, you were going to jump in there.
Yeah. So Nick mentioned something that I love talking about a lot lately is the balance of too little content or too really long descriptions. And I think particularly for e-commerce, and a great area of opportunity for e-commerce is to bridge that balance with video, because then you can have really descriptive products, titles and descriptions. And then you can have a video that describes it in detail, creates that experience. And you don't have to have that Amazon product description that you have to keep scrolling to read all the details. And then I'm tired of reading by the time I get to the 7th bullet point. So you can do it in video. And that is that's also a great way to build up your brand's identity too, because you can have just one person who's modeling these, cruelty-free handbags. And so that's a great example, by the way, because I was just shopping for a purse on Amazon, and it was really bugging the crap out of me that I couldn't, they put the purse on a fake person. And, it's like that old Apple commercial that was just the white person dancing with the AirPod, or not, this was before AirPods, but, dancing around. And I'm I can't really tell, if that's going to be comfortable on my shoulder while I'm grocery shopping, where's it going to hit me on my hip and things like that. And so I wished I had seen a real woman walking with the purse that I was interested in. And so I think that's a really great opportunity, and something I've been hearing a lot of conversation about, especially with the pandemic and a lot of stores coming online, and and kind of getting rid of the brick and mortar stuff and just being e-com. And if you want to create that experience, that real experience that differentiates you from another handbag maker, create those in videos and have that in your products and throughout your site. And then you also have additional SEO and ranking opportunities in the video as well. So
here's a question from me on video then, right? If we are busy trying to make our site load really quickly, should we be putting our video of someone walking along with our vegan cruelty-free handbag? God, there's some eyebrows going there, Luke. Should we be putting that on YouTube and embedding from YouTube in our websites, the YouTube video plays, given that's a Google product as well?
You know what?
Or should we be investing in a higher spec video program? Luke, your eyebrows have told me you really need to answer this one.
No, I want to hear what the eyebrows have to say.
it's a pain point. It's a constant pain point because I have a client who works in a very technical space with computer networks and racks and stuff, and this is a constant problem for them. 3D drawings, really kind of technical documents that are probably a couple of megabytes a piece. How do you find the balance? And what's really interesting is when you look at PageSpeed Insights, I don't know whether they've fixed this yet because I haven't played with it in the last couple of months, but PageSpeed Insights hates YouTube embeds. It actually hates them. So what are we supposed to do as Google products? You're telling us you want more multimedia, and then you give more multimedia and you're saying take it out. But the way around it that I find is click to play, because search engines can't click typically, although they might be there in 4 arms and legs at some point. But
that also makes a better user experience because sometimes you don't need that shenanigans to just autoplay. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it seems to be a decent, but then there's also limitations on that. But for analytics and that sort of good stuff, click to play is always great because then you're not loading on the page. You're actually asking the user if they want to load this resource, especially if you're in a portion area. Some people have used a bit of a hybrid, which is a bit tongue-in-cheek, which is to use a GIF as like a small GIF first, and then you click on that to play the video. It's a bit more of an eye-catching element. But yeah, I think click to engage and really rich multimedia downloads and files is a good workaround. But I can imagine that having a limiting shelf life, and maybe in a couple of years from now we'll be complaining about how search engines click everything and are ranked by speed of response of double clicking and stuff. There'll be more acronyms and crap.
There will always be more acronyms. Always.
Yeah.
Anyone else got any other thoughts on
Yes.
what the best way to do embed your YouTube? Right, Nick.
Do not let the video load on page load. I know we're all saying that. It's just for anyone who's new to this.
There's one thing you take away from today.
Yes. What I mean by that is autoplay means that when you land on the page, the video starts playing. But what you can do is you can either have the video load after the page, or you can have it load as part of the page. And I made the mistake years ago as a developer going, this video looks great. And there's me sitting in London on a structured communications internet line, which is about 1.5 gig a second, which is 1,500 megasecond for anybody who's got like a 10, 20 meg line in their house. And then the client said, it's not loading for me. It's timing out. It's like, what do you mean? And then when I checked, it was like, this is not working. But yeah, I don't make it load on page. I think the YouTube option makes so much sense. But as you said, Luke, what a bunch of hypocrites that are sitting at Google in Dublin telling us to use YouTube, but then not understanding or discrediting us for using YouTube. There is quite a lot you can do with this stuff, though. A lot of sites now use Vimeo instead because it's a bit more flexible in terms of uploading an image. Even on, I think it's WP Bakery and Elementor, there's a few like WordPress page building tools where you can upload a thumbnail, which means you're now in control of the image you put on in front of it. And when you click play, then it connects to Vimeo. Until then, it hasn't really downloaded anything, which means our page speed, UX, etc. is all really smooth. I personally am much more a fan of not using autoplay unless somebody has clicked a button that says, watch this video now, and you click it and it starts, even if that's on a new page. But yeah, I'm not a fan of autoplay. I've just heard back about the app, Chloe.
Oh, and that was fast. Well done.
I sent a text message to one of the devs at the agency, and he said, we made it ourselves. It's not an app. It's completely bespoke. So please just put onstate.co.uk, which is the name of the agency. So I'm afraid it's not an app, but those are the links we went to make the platform the client wanted work. So.
But that's good to know for anyone out there who's got money to invest in their Shopify site. It's possible if this is a big problem for you, and maybe that's an app opportunity for someone to build.
Do it.
Yeah, especially now that Shopify aren't charging commission on sales of the first £1 million an app makes or something. Was it 1 million? I've only very quickly scanned the updates from Shopify Unite.
I will be registering my software company in the morning.
Right, on that bombshell.
Anyway.
Adam, any thoughts from you on because I know you've done quite a lot looking into YouTube SEO as well, haven't you? So
yeah, I don't know where this kind of falls on the line because I don't know that much about it, but it's just a few clients of mine I've been frustrated really with the videos they've created is more where this is coming from, where we wanted to create these really nice rich videos that, as Diana said, it kind of puts the product in perspective and context of the people using it, and therefore it's a really good sales technique versus someone visiting a store. However, what they did is rather than doing a voiceover where they're describing the product with someone speaking, they embedded the text into the video and then did a royalty-free track over the top of it. What that means is Google doesn't have an idea of what's actually in the video, because it can understand closed captions and will auto-generate them, and then that will be ranked in Google, in search when someone types in those keywords. Whereas if it's just baked in, baked in text, there's nothing there for Google to grab onto and understand. So if you are doing video, just please make sure you're just doing actual video and talking to someone and talking to your customer when you're doing that video, rather than just putting text on the thing. That was it.
Transcripts. They're a good shout. Transcripts.
I think you can upload a transcript file separately as well, to be more accurate, but you can't do it if it's not got any video or spoken word in the actual video itself. So just do it. If you're going to do it for the customer and do it properly, and please don't just try and half-arse it and shortcut it, because it just doesn't work, and it means you lose out on a lot more potential.
So we have to have a voiceover, and then we want a proper closed captions, not just video editor words, and then we can upload a transcript as well if we want to do the whole thing. Yeah, there's a couple of services out there, which I can't remember the name of, that do these transcripts for a few cents a word. It's so cheap. There's no reason not to do it, and it's just that if you're doing a voiceover and talking to your customer normally, like you would if they were listed in front of you, that's a much better video experience, and it's a much better SEO experience as well, because these clients are coming to me with these videos and going, "Can you SEO this, please?" And the answer is like, "No, you've cocked it up from the start." So it seems everyone is frustrated. This clearly should have been cocktail hour. I apologise, everybody.
Yeah,
those of you tuning in, you are getting our SEO rants today. Okay, Lucy. So we do have time for one more question. Lucy has asked, "Is SEMrush the best tool for keyword research for beginners?" Diana has already gone back and said, "Yes, of course it is."
Can I tell you why?
So where is this chat anyway? Is it?
It was hiding, and I found it. And I'm
on the left-hand side, the two little speech bubbles. You got it.
Yeah.
Oh no, Nick's loose in chat as well.
Hands on head.
Diana, you can quickly tell us why SEMrush is the best keyword research tool for beginners, and then we'll let the others position their favourite research tool
yes,
as well.
We're not totally biased here. There's a lot of really great tools out there in the world for the SEO industry, and as I did digital marketing for a million years before I worked for SEMrush, so I've used more tools than SEMrush too. But what I love about SEMrush's keyword research tool is we also have a topic research tool. So we've talked a lot about topic research today, but specific. So you can start with keyword clusters. We're really good at that workflow too, but then you can deep dive into keywords from our keyword magic tool, and that gives you a lot of different metrics other than like search volume. So it also gives you like how many SERP features it's triggering. Tells you like how difficult the keyword is. We actually just went through a really big keyword difficulty upgrade in May. So we updated that technology. So it's a lot more. Thank you, Adam, for the thumbs up. We're really proud of it. So that is like a lot more relevant and a lot more helpful now. It also tells you the competitive levels even on paid search side, so you know how much people are average bidding on. So there's a lot more details than you would get maybe from just the Google Keyword Planner. There's a lot more data involved. You can also take the keywords that you like and move them further along in other tools in SEMrush, so you can create like organized collections and do more detailed research. It's not just a one, wham bam, thank you ma'am kind of thing. My absolute favorite feature is that you can research not only keywords, but questions around your keywords. And that's really important from an e-commerce standpoint. And from Paula's response, she is a content-driven site, and you want to be answering questions in your content regardless of what kind of site you have. So with our tool, you can actually research what kind of questions are being asked around your primary keyword terms, as well as find synonyms, other spellings, vegan versus cruelty-free, and related keywords. So the Keyword Magic tool is one of our most robust singular tools out of a tool suite. So it's really, really powerful.
Very nice. Okay, quick.
I like it. I was going to say, the questions tool is so useful. I use it all the time for finding out and generating what customers are searching for. So yeah, big fan of that.
Okay, cool. We'll go through the other three of you with your top keyword tool, which might just be SEMrush as well. Nick, you first.
We don't use SEM Rush, if I'm honest. The only thing
SEM Rush, Nick. We went through a rebrand in December. It is officially SEM Rush.
You get
SEM
some
Rush.
really uppity, mate. You can't do it.
You should have just let me carry on because I wasn't talking about you guys
then.
then.
Say it. I'll just
I think just on the topic of tools very briefly, tools are great, but you need to have some sort of plan that isn't always going to be in the tool. The tool will only tell it what you ask. And as the Bible famously says, seek and ye shall find. You want to find a good story about your website right now, you will find it in any tool. The same with a bad one. We often start off keyword lists really old school, literally not quite pen and paper, but notepad and website, and just go through what's the structure of the site right now. We might use a tool to crawl it. We then often use Keyword Planner initially when we're sort of having that initial, Adam mentioned the buzzword discovery, when we're talking to a client about what we're going to target, what's the strategy. And then once we're happy with it, is the site in the right position now? Is the structure of the site right? Let's start with the basics, get that right, then start optimizing pages. We often use Google Keyword Planner itself just to get the data in. And then a lot of our clients do use SEM Rush. We use SE ranking quite a lot, which does a very similar thing. One of the reasons we use them, though, is because they're quite small. So we're one of the bigger partners on their platform. So if we want something, we get it, because it's normally something they want to deliver to everybody, to the point where it's almost free to us now. And I think we have over 1 million keywords in it or something ridiculous. So we use that, and even like the report builder function is completely unlocked to us and to us only, so we can build our own reports and add stuff. But certainly, Keyword Planner is the horse's mouth. I did find, and this can be the next topic if you want, Chloe, I found that toddler keywords and pregnancy keywords for one of our clients today, you cannot find any data for them in any keyword tool or on Google, and Google don't know why.
Diana's on it.
Toddler clothing.
You see that face then?
No info on toddler clothing. It just pops up the yellow error. Cannot provide any information on this.
We've now lost Diana completely.
Yeah. Toddler clothing. Yeah. I didn't have this up my sleeve, but now we're here. But anyway, Luke, Adam.
I got data.
Can you send it to me? I need it. Not now, bro. You should have asked that 5 minutes before you started banging on that.
Before you got the brand wrong.
There was no bashing. There was just...
You did say toddler clothing, right?
Yeah. In the UK.
I got let me look in the UK. I did US.
All right. While Diana's sorting out Nick's technical support, my actual favourite flavour of tool is Ahrefs, and I like their people also asked extraction feature. Mm-hmm. So going back to Adam's point on questions, and I think actually Diana, you touched on this as well, is questions are hugely helpful. I think questions can really help formulate content and pieces and questions that people have, and they can really help to identify categories and FAQs you can write and all sorts of good stuff. But for me, Ahrefs and the people also asked extraction from the featured snippet feature. I also really love Systrix. I think they're an incredible. They're a little bit of an underdog, especially in the UK. I don't know how successful or how big of a thing they are out in the States, but Systrix is a wonderfully simple tool for someone who is quite lazy like me and just wants keywords on tap at the right time. So I haven't got to work for it. But Diana, you mentioned the keyword magic tool in SEM Rush. I actually, the little bit of an insight to my MasterCon presentation actually that I'm doing later this year is on the keyword magic tool to power your faceted navigation and how you should drive your facets based upon that tool. So
we need to talk.
Yeah, we need to talk.
Awesome.
You can hook me up with a subscription at any time, you know.
Diana is the cat amongst the pigeons here. It's like putting a client on the board with all of us.
Well, I love the fact that Nick said a tool is only as good as the you need a strategy, you need a rationale. Why are you doing it for? If you just want to lose yourself in a tool, you can, but of course you need some output and an outcome, should I say, from that. So
you need context. Otherwise, it's just keyword research in a vacuum. So it's absolutely right.
Yeah, you can spend, just like with Google Analytics, you can spend a lot of time in any SEO tool finding very interesting things that are of no use to you whatsoever.
It's fascinating to SEOs. Yeah. Data brains.
We will give the last word on tools to Adam. So Adam, what's your top recommendation for a tool?
So I'm going to cheat slightly and give two very quickly. One is Mangles. I think it's a really accessible tool for people who are starting out. I don't think it's necessarily the best, but I think if you're quite early stage and new to this, it's got a very user-friendly interface and it's much more affordable than SEM Rush. Sorry, Diana. Two, I think it would be that my second tool would be Keywords Everywhere, plug in for Google, and then just use Google. Honestly, it will produce so many keywords in the sidebar is a Chrome plugin, and it will just throw loads of ideas out, and immediately you'll start searching for things that you think of, and then it will just generate more and more other keywords that people are also searching for. And if you don't have a budget, I just use that. It doesn't give you search data in terms of the volume or the difficulty or anything like that, but to a certain extent, I don't think it needs to, because it just gets you thinking and realizing that you don't know as much about your customers as you think you might do. And also just Google's, people also ask, and at the bottom, Google's, I don't even know what they're called now, the 8 links at the bottom of the page. There's probably a technical term for them, but the people also search for just reading that and really understanding what is actually appearing in search results is a really valuable place to start, because it gives you an idea of what Google's looking for. If you search for a term and you get loads of map results and localized search, Google's looking for localized search results, and you probably won't rank on a national term for it. And the vice versa is true. If you get loads of images, Google's thinking it's an image-based term, and therefore probably focus more on Pinterest or on image optimization than on a blog post for that term.
Nice. Well, guys, we are going to have to start wrapping up now. So thank you all for all your tips, and I will do my best to include links to all of them when we put the site live, when we put this video replay up, so you've got them all. Just to remind you all, though, you can book your free discovery call, there's that discovery word, with Luke at keepopt.com/Luke. You can get a free mini SEO audit with Adam via abastock.co.uk/masterplan. Nick and Spec Digital are available at spec.digital, and Diana and the amazing SEM Rush tool are available via www.semrush.com. On the Keep Optimizing podcast, we are talking marketplaces in July. We are not doing a traditional e-commerce marketing method. Rather, we're going to get into, if you've got your own site, you're on Shopify, you're on WooCommerce, you're on Magento or something else, should you also be selling on marketplaces? Because it can be a very powerful way to find new customers and to grow turnover. Or can it? We are starting off next Wednesday with Chris Dawson from Tame Bay telling us why we should also be selling on Amazon, eBay, etc. The following week, we're going to have Thomas J. Vosper from Aisle 3 on telling us why we should not also be selling on marketplaces. The week after that, we're going deep onto Amazon, which is the one which most of you usually end up on. And then we're going to wrap up with 5 things to do before you start selling on marketplaces. So if you're not confused about marketplaces already, you hopefully won't be, but maybe considerably confused by marketplaces by the time we get to the end of next month's podcast episodes. But we will have as many of them as can make it joining me for a webinar at the end of July to answer your questions. So that's what's coming up on the Keep Optimizing Marketing podcast in July. For now, though, thank you all for your questions. Thank you for coming along. Thank you to our marvelous panelists. It has been, I think, our most energetic yet one of these webinars, which is brilliant. You can hear them wooing in the background. So thank you all for being here, and that's a wrap.